Hey YouTube, welcome back to Dwayne's World. So it's finally here. It's finally the season finale here on Dwayne's World. You want to find out what we're doing? Well, you better stay tuned. All right guys, so welcome back to season 2, episode 37, which I'm calling part 1 of my season finale here on Dwayne's World. So for the season finale, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing overseeding in both my front yard and my backyard. And in part 1, I'll be featuring the front, and in part 2, I'll be featuring the back. Thinking about this season finale, I'll be honest with you guys, I really had to think long and hard on whether or not I really wanted to do this. Now, as you guys know, last year I did overseed the front lawn, and that wasn't necessarily a big deal. And the reason why I would say it's not necessarily a big deal was because of the fact that the square footage in my front yard is fairly small. But to actually commit to mowing the front and the back during the winter months, a lot of people with Bermuda this time of year, it's the start of that break that we get between growing season to growing season. So really when it comes down to it, it's a time thing. That I want to invest that amount of time during the off season. So there's not really a break, and you're really going to be going from one season right into the next, and that's a big commitment. But ultimately, I decided I wanted to do it. And there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to do it, some of which I'll be sharing on part 2 of the season finale. Now, the one thing I will say, and I'll acknowledge right now, and why I wanted to do this overseeding project, was because of you guys. I wanted to continue to be able to feature content for you into the winter months, where a lot of times YouTubers during this time of year, especially on warm season turf, tend to really slow down. So when it comes to overseeding, last year, I would say that I probably went a little further than I really needed to. And what I mean by that is I obviously scalped, I used a turf rake, I used a verticutter, I used a dethatcher, and obviously I put down the seed, and I used topper. So there was a lot that went into that actually overseeding. But it wasn't that big of a deal because we were only talking about 800 square feet. Now, when you talk about doing my back lawn and it being almost 7,000 square feet, that would be an absolutely monumental task to be able to do all those things. So in a lot of the research that I've done, I don't think you necessarily need to do that in order to get a good result. So this year, I'm taking a much simpler approach with overseeding, where I'm simply going to scalp, then I'll be dropping down the seed and water accordingly, and that way I should get a good result. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the front lawn. All right, guys, so here's the front lawn as it currently sits. As you can see here, dormancy is starting to set in, although the color is still looking pretty good. You know, for those of you that are new to my channel, I did overseed this last year with Perennial Rye, and it was absolutely looking on point. After killing it off, the Bermuda definitely did have some struggles, but it definitely looked better than it did a year ago. Now, one of the things I am dealing with right now, and I'm going to go ahead and pick out these weeds by hand, but I am starting to get some weeds here. So definitely want to address those things before we get into the scalp. So with that, let's start up the true cut. All right, guys, as you can see here, the grass catcher is definitely full. This first pass was cut at 3/4 inch. You know, I've been maintaining my front lawn at a slightly higher height of cut, you know, probably closer to 1 inch. And it's only because of the fact that this year I really didn't use any PGR on my front lawn. Really wanted to give it a chance to heal. But in this first pass, as you can tell, I definitely took off most of the green. I still have some green here around the trees, you guys can see here. But definitely a great start to this scalp on the front lawn. So with that, let's go ahead and drop it down to 5/8. Alright guys, so one of the things I just wanted to bring up is I mentioned this in one of my previous videos was where I believe I had made a mistake that could have affected my overseeding project. And the mistake I was referring to was using a preventative fungicide on my lawn before actually doing an overseeding. Now a lot of the research I had done had shown that you should probably wait 14 to 28 days before actually throwing down your grass seed. Now with a lot of other research I've done, it shows that no, you're fine using a fungicide, you just don't want to use a herbicide on your lawn during an overseeding project. Now going back and doing other research, I think the bigger issue is if you have fungus in your lawn, you don't want to be doing an overseeding at that time until you've corrected that fungus issue, because that fungus will affect your new seed after it's actually germinated, which will then affect your result. But if there's a different issue later on, we'll just have to wait and see. All right guys, so 5/8 of an inch, all done. Now we're going to go ahead and take the true cut, drop it down to 1/2 inch. All right guys, you can see here 1/2 inch, definitely looking good. And I could probably stop here, but I'm going to try to drop it down even further and go to the lowest setting on the true cut. Now I'll still have to come back and clean up my edges. I'll go ahead and use my Ego trimmer to take care of that. But I think on this last pass, I'm going to go ahead and not use the grass catcher and come back with the rotary mower to clean it up. I said it once and I'll say it again, the True Cut, an absolute beast. As you guys can see here, did a fabulous job scalping down the lawn to 7/16. Now, there were a couple areas couldn't quite get it to 7/16, but that half-inch cut was absolutely low enough for me to be able to do this overseeding project. Like I said, I'm going to come back and with my Ego trimmer, clean up some of these edges and around the tree there. But let's go ahead and break out the rotary mower, clean it up. Alright, so as you guys can see here, I'm using my Ego trimmer. Now some of you may be wondering, well Dwayne, why are you not using your rotary scissors? Wouldn't that be a better tool for this scalp job? And I'll be honest with you guys, the Ego trimmer does really quick work of bringing the lawn down to the same height that I scalped it with. The rotary scissors actually do a much better job not scalping, so this is where I think, in my opinion, the Ego trimmer is the tool for the job. Alright guys, so it's the next morning after I did that scalp. So after the scalp last night, it was getting pretty late, so I figured let me wait till the next day and show you guys what the actual lawn looks like now after scalping. Again, I scalped it down to 3/8 of an inch, which is the lowest setting on the True Cut. So with that, let me go ahead and turn the camera. Here we are. As you guys can see here, got quite a bit of dirt that's exposed. I think I have enough of the canopy removed where I can now throw down my perennial grass seed and hopefully be able to get some great germination fairly quickly. Alright guys, so one of the things I am going to do differently this year that I actually did last year but will not be doing this year is I will not be using any topper after throwing down the perennial grass seed. Now you may be wondering, well Dwayne, that seems like a different approach or the wrong approach. Why are you not using any type of topper as where it's normally recommended whenever you're overseeding? And you would be correct. However, a lot of the landscapers in my area simply just scalp and throw the seed down, and as long as you water and fertilize, you get a really nice result. So I'm going to kind of take that same approach. Now, one of the reasons why I'm choosing not to use the topper, although I love the fact that it has the benefits of the nutrients, is because of the fact that it has so much debris in the actual topper itself. There's wood chips and just other things in there that I do not like to introduce into the reel when I'm reel mowing. Now, one of the things I did do last year to try to help fix some of that or get rid of some of that debris was either rake it out or use my rotary mower to be able to suck it up. But I just didn't want to go through all those steps again this year, and I kind of just felt like maybe it's best for me just not to use the topper, and I think I'll get a really good result just because a lot of the homes in the area here get a really good result with simply just scalping and throwing down the grass seed. So with that, let's go ahead and throw down that grass seed. All right, guys, so it's probably been about 2 days since I did the scalp on my front lawn here, as you guys can see. The reason why it's been 2 days and I haven't put down the grass seed just yet is because I'm actually filming 2 videos at the same time. This is going to be my front lawn video, and then I'm also doing one for the backyard, obviously, which is taking a lot more time than this particular video. But I wanted to show you guys the grass seed I'm going to be using for both the front and the back. The grass seed I'm going to go with is actually a grass seed I've never used before, but let me kind of tell you why I chose to use this particular grass seed before I actually show it to you. A buddy of mine actually lent me the True Cut Joel. He has a friend that he knows named Andrew. So Andrew actually subscribes to my channel and is actually another lawn enthusiast in the city that I live in. And he used this perennial grass seed the last couple years, and he had really good success. Now it's 100% weed-free perennial rye. So my buddy Joe had recommended, hey, you know what, why don't you try the seed that Andrew uses, because he has really good success year after year and gets really good quick germination. So with that, let me go ahead and show you guys what seed I'm going to go with. All right, so this is what we'll be using today. This is Empro, sold exclusively at Ewing. And the reason why I chose to pick this up, again, is because of the fact that it is 100% weed-free. I'm going to zoom in on the tag here for you guys to see. And if you guys can see here, there's a 0.01 weed seed. Now, it's also a blue tag certified perennial ryegrass. Now, what they also claim on this bag is that it guarantees that it does not have any POA. All right, so with that, let me talk to you guys about what rate I'm gonna go with. All right, so my front lawn is about 750 square feet. So the rate I wanna go with, although you can go as low as 10 pounds per thousand, I'm gonna choose to go with the higher rate, which is 15 pounds per thousand, which is probably in my case gonna be about 12 pounds of actual perennial rye seed. I think that's gonna leave me plenty of headroom, just in case I may need to go back and touch up some areas, but I think that's gonna be a really good place to start and should give me a really nice result. So with that, let me go ahead and measure it out. So this is about 12 pounds of perennial rye grass seed. I am using a Scott's Turf Builder Classic Drop seed spreader. I picked this up on OfferUp for a really good price. I think it was only used one time, and I picked it up for about $25. So I knew I wasn't gonna be using very often, but that $25 is gonna be well worth it. So with that, let's go ahead and start throwing down the perennial. So don't worry guys, I'm gonna use a leaf blower, but not like what you think. All I wanna do is just basically knock back any of the seed that is slightly on the sidewalk just into the actual gap of the curbing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set my Eagle blower on the lowest setting. All right guys, so I still have a little bit left in the hopper here. You know, it's probably about a good, I don't know, it's probably about a pound or two. The reason why I chose to stop and not just put it all out is just because it's very thick. I can see the seed practically everywhere. So the last thing I want to do is choke it out. So I think this rate is pretty good. And again, I can always go back and touch it up, but I think I got really good even distribution because I went over the lawn so many times. All right, so with that, now it's time to water it in. All right, so I'll go ahead and play around with how long I want to actually run my irrigation. But my thought is I'll probably run it 2 to 3 minutes a cycle, multiple times a day, just so I make sure I keep the grass seed wet. So right now I have it set to 3 minutes. I'll go ahead and take a look at it afterwards and see if it's too much or not enough water. All right guys, so it's been about 4 or 5 days since I actually put down that perennial grass seed on my front lawn here. So I want to give you guys a quick update before we go ahead and end this video on what the actual lawn looks like. So with that, let me go ahead and turn the camera around and give you guys a better view. All right guys, so I know I don't have a lot of sun here on the lawn, but as you can tell, there's a slight green haze over the lawn. And what that is perennial rye. It's starting to break through. And that's what we're looking for. You know, again, we still have a lot of area that needs to fill in. It's going to be a little bit of time before I actually get in a mow here, but it's just nice to see that I am getting a lot of germination. Let me kind of just zoom down here to the turf, give you guys a little bit better idea of that germination. So as you guys can see there, got a little bit of perennial rye peeking through which is looking great. But definitely happy with the result thus far. All right, guys, so one of the things I just wanted to address is, because I haven't talked about this, is what type of fertilizer I'm going to go with and how come I didn't put down any fertilizer after throwing down the grass seed. And I will actually use a fertilizer, and some of you may be thinking, well, Dwayne, what starter fertilizer are you going to go with? And the bottom line is I'm not going to use a starter fertilizer. And the reason why I'm not going to is because the phosphorus levels in my ground are very high. When you think about a starter fertilizer, it has a lot of phosphorus in it, which is meant to establish good roots. But because of the fact that I have so much in the ground already, the seed should be okay absorbing and taking up what's already in the soil. The other thing I really want to be cautious of is I don't want to have spring dead spot again next year. And one of the ways you get spring dead spot, in addition to a fungus, is applying too much nitrogen to your lawn, which is something that can easily happen during an overseeding project. Now, again, the stuff I'm telling you right now is just my opinion only, and there may be other research out there that contradicts it. But just in the way I think about it, I have seen a lot of lawns that have been overseeded where people are now pounding their lawns with nitrogen because of the fact that they have perennial rye, and they are now creating an environment for spring dead spot in your Bermuda turf. So that's why I'm going to limit the amount of nitrogen I throw at it, even during the overseeding and after the seed has been established. I'm not going to be throwing a lot of nitrogen at my lawn because of the fact that the Bermuda is still alive underneath that perennial rye. Now, the last thing I want to do is come out of the overseeding of the perennial rye with a lot of Bermuda issues going into the next growing season. So that's kind of my logic. All right, guys, so that pretty much puts a wrap on season 2, episode 37, part 1 of our season finale. You know, I already recorded a lot of part 2. There's just a couple things I need to take care of along with some editing. So you guys will be able to see that video in the next few days here. But I will say, I don't know. I have some concerns. Did I do the right thing? Did I do the wrong thing? How's it going to look? Is it going to be a good result, bad result? Am I going to have to start all over again? Well, you're just going to have to wait to season 2, episode 38, which is part 2 of the season finale, to find out exactly what I'm talking about. So with that, as always, be excellent and party on.